And I'm going to pull up my slides really quickly. So I have something to share with you guys today about how to connect with people. And this is from John Maxwell. And we talk a lot about John. And actually, he shared a little bit of this with us. It's from an older book that he had, that he had written. And so now he just recently broke it down into, hold on just one second. Here we go. He just recently had broken it down into actually action steps, and it is so good. So we're going to talk about how to learn to better connect with people. And he starts off by saying that, so there are 10 ways that you're going to connect better with people. And really anybody that is, successful, or they succeed at whatever their definition of succeeding is, they know how to connect with people. And so John says, when you learn to connect with yourself and then with other people, you're on your way to achieving anything that you want in your life. And so he said, everyone communicates, but very few connect. And for me, that was a huge aha, because we can all think of people who may communicate really well, but they might not necessarily connect with people very well. And you can think of people probably right off the top of your head. I bet people come to mind who connect with you, or who you connect with when they communicate. He said, very few people grab you and really take you to the place where they connect with you. He said, when you're done talking, value will come forth from it because you actually connected. And so there's a big difference between communicating and connecting. So you can use this in your personal life. You can use this with how you do business. But the fact is that we all need to get better at connecting with people. And for some of us, that's going to come naturally. It's going to be a natural, like God-given ability to us that we connect really well with people. For others of us, we may have to actually work on it, and we may have to come with these strategies and use these 10 ways that John says. So I love the quote at the bottom. He said, if it's true that almost everything we become and accomplish in life is with and through other people, then the ability to connect and create rapport with them is the most important skill that we can learn. And I was thinking about this, we don't learn that in school. And a lot of times we don't even learn that until we actually start to, in real life, do these things and connect with people. So here we go. Number one, and I put pictures in the background of different times that I felt connected and or was learning how to connect better from John. And I know this is kind of faded out in the background, but this picture is John's office in his house. And he was walking us through and showing us. It's one of my favorite memories, honestly, of my life, really, to be honest. He was walking us through and showing us the meaningful things in his office, why he saved them and what they mean to him and all those things. But that's just a side note. So anyway, way number one to connect with people, he said I forgot the S. He understands the value of connecting with others. You have to actually understand the value of connecting with others. He talked about how he remembers when he was in school, and you guys probably can remember this too. Some of you were in school a lot more recent than I was in school, but he said he noticed certain teachers were the ones that everybody wanted. And other teachers, you would say, oh my gosh, I hope I don't get so-and-so who was a teacher. And he said that it was the same school. They were teaching the same subject. It was the same everything else. But what was the difference? So those teachers connected. One connected and one didn't connect with their students. There was a reason why the students felt like that they were connected to those teachers or not. So John said he understands the value of connecting with others. He said at a really young age, he noticed who connected with people and who did not connect with people. He said that he really knew that if you wanted to be liked, or if you wanted to win or grow, or you wanted to be successful, or you wanted to succeed in what you were doing, then you had to know how to connect with people. The second way, he says, this is also one of my very favorite pictures of John and Adam. I love this picture. Like some random photographer took it, and it's like we got it from him and I saved it. But he said he tried to imitate connectors that he admired. This is the one that he does not recommend. So he said, out of all the 10 ways I'm going to give you today, this is the one I don't want you to do, but I want to share it with you, because he said I wouldn't be authentic and real and genuine if I didn't share it with you. And he said this was one of the mistakes that he made in connecting with other people. He said, think about the question, have you ever seen another connector and then tried to be like them? And he gives different stories of how he would go, and he was in the pastor world. So he would go and he would hear these other pastors and he would try to imitate those pastors. And he said, and they would inflect their voice and talk really loud at certain points, or they would tell jokes that necessarily weren't super funny. And so John said that when he was young, he would say, man, I really want to try to be like so-and-so. But he said that there were times that he tried to be like them, but it never worked. He said it was never going to work because he was never going to be like those people. Certain people had certain communication gifts and they came natural to them. So he said, like a comedian, for example, if you're not funny or it doesn't come natural to you to use humor to connect with people, then you can try all you want, but you're not going to connect with them because that's just not your natural way. Somebody else may be really funny and their way of connecting with people may be funny. And Monica, I see you just because I think because we were talking. So now you're the one that I see at the top of my screen, that I think you're funny. And I think one of the ways you connect with people is through your humor. But other people might not be, that just might not come natural to them. So they have to learn to connect with people another way. So this is the one that he says not to do. But use that as an example. So here's the third thing he says. He determined to be himself and to build on his own strengths. He was very determined. And then he gave some quotes that I really liked. Woody Allen said, "My only regret in life is that I'm not somebody else." And then Doris Mortman, who John had studied before, says, "Until you make peace with who you are, you'll never be content with what you have." And so he said he really in his mind had to move the question from what did they have that I want to what do I have that people will want. And that's what he had to really think about. What were his own strengths that were unique to him that he could give to other people? So he said, find out the strengths that are within you and use them in your repertoire. He says, how can you touch people's lives and allow them to plug into you as a listener? What are you really great at? How do you connect with people? And so he said, these are the 5 that are John's, just for those of you that are wondering. And some of you may have the same ones, and others of you may have different ones. I know I have some different ones than what John does, but when John really dug deep, his 5 big strengths in communication and connecting with people were, number 1, humor. And if you've ever heard John, you know he really is funny. And so humor is his first one. He says he enjoys his audience, subject, and himself when he speaks. And he just brings humor into it. And he said he laughs at himself and he's able to laugh at other people. The second one is authenticity, is a strength for John. He does not teach what he does not live or believe. And so when he's connecting with other people, whether it's new friends or business associates or even family members or whatever, he only can do it in an authentic way and something that he actually believes in. The third thing that he has as a strength is confidence. He naturally feels good about himself and others. He said he thinks he was blessed to have a great home life and that he just has always been confident. As a kid, he was confident. His parents instilled confidence in him. And so he said that confidence is one of his really great communication strengths, because he says when you aren't confident, your way of connecting with people can come out in a different way. It can almost seem, really, sometimes it can seem kind of, I don't know, managerial, I guess is the best word, instead of actually just making a genuine connection. The fourth strength of John's is hope. He said he naturally lifts and encourages other people. That's natural to him. So anything that he does or any message that he gives, he wants to shed light to somebody and give them hope. And that's just a natural strength of his. And then the last one is simplicity. He said, he actually said, one of the best days of my life was when I figured out that I wasn't an intellectual. He said, I'm really not smart. He said, I wish I was smart. I wish I was one of those people that never had to study for a test and would show up and get an A, where they didn't have to look at anything or review their notes and they just automatically knew stuff. And he said, but complex things don't grab me. And so he said, I have to have it simple. I have to communicate and connect with people in a simplicity type way where it's very simple and broken down, because complex things overwhelm him. So he gives an action item, and I would encourage you guys to do this. Make a list of your own strengths and know them and use them. And that's how you're going to be able to connect with people better. And let me circle back really fast. The reason that this plays into mindset, in my opinion, is because when you know how to really connect with people, your mindset is better and you're able to encourage other people to have a better mindset. And a lot of times when you're around people who have a great mindset, you're connecting with them because like attracts like, and you want to be around people that are like you. Way number 4 is he asked for feedback. He said, Stephen Covey actually says, not John, Stephen Covey says, it takes humility to seek feedback. It takes wisdom to understand it, analyze it, and appropriately act on it. He always asks everyone what he did well and what he could have improved on. In any relationship, he does that. He actually says he knows people who've been in relationships or marriages or whatever that looks like, and years down the road, he said the wise ones have gone back and said, we both made mistakes, but in your opinion, what could I have done better, or what could I have improved on? And he said they may not ask you what they could have improved on or done better, but he said that wise people always want feedback. And so he said he had one of his associates that works with John would travel around with him for the first several years that John was really learning how to be a great speaker and a great communicator. And he said at the end of every time, the guy would just sit there, I can't remember his name, and he would watch as John communicated. And he said every time at the end, they would get in the car to leave, and John would say, what were my best 3 minutes? What were my worst 3 minutes? And what could I have done better? And he said he just kept asking that over and over and over. And that's how he became a great communicator with people. He said, this is huge. Non-connectors can tell if you disconnect, but only connectors can actually tell you why. So if you're ever listening to somebody, or you're, talking or chatting, or you're in some sort of social setting, you can honestly, when you're a connector, you can see when people check out, and you can tell why people check out. And it kind of comes natural. And so he says, you don't need connection advice from someone who can't connect. So you have to learn really well from, that's why I look to learn from John, because I don't know anybody that can connect with people better than John Maxwell, honestly. And he's a connector. And so he said, just like you wouldn't go take swimming lessons from somebody who doesn't know how to swim, you have to learn how to connect from people who are great at connecting. He said, there are a whole bunch of people who can't communicate. And when they do communicate, it's like no one is home. And I kind of thought that was funny, but it really is true. And the biggest reason is because they just don't connect. This is way number 5. He studied the great connectors. So 2 questions that he always asked himself. It's supposed to say himself and others, sorry. But how did the person connect, and how long did the person connect? He said great connectors will keep people connected and engaged for a long time. So he said you have to ask 2 questions, ask yourself 2 questions. You have to study those 2 questions above about the people that you would say are fantastic connectors. And then who are 2 to 3 people, really think about it, that you believe are really great connectors. And then what do they have in common? You feel instantly connected to them when they communicate. Who are 2 or 3 of those people? And it could be people you know, or people that you honestly don't know. This is a funny story I'll tell you really fast. Do any of you, I know some of you who've been on several weeks will know Tyler Dickerhoof. He's been a guest a couple of times for us. And this funny story about this picture. So that's John, and that's his wife, Margaret. And then that's his granddaughter with the purple dress on. And then the guy on the very far left is an auctioneer. And then Adam and I. This is, if you heard the funny story about, we were at a live auction of Margaret's paintings for John's charity. And Tyler and Adam do resemble each other. They're both tall. They both are bald. They both kind of look alike. And Tyler had purchased a painting, and Tyler was kind of upping the bid, and it was towards the end, and he raised his hand to up the bid, and the guy looked at Adam and said, Adam, sold. And he got him mixed up. So which was great, because, we love the painting, and we were going to give to his charity anyway. But anyway, that's how we ended up with this painting, this several $1000s of painting. It was a funny story, but it was great because we learned how to connect that night too. Way number 6, John says, is he did his homework. He said, if you're gifted and you do the following, this part was like fascinating to me. I loved this. If you're gifted and you do nothing with it, you'll be in the top 50%. If you're gifted and you do something with it, you'll be in the top 10%. If you're gifted and you do everything that you can with what you've been gifted in, you'll be a 1%er. You'll be in the top 1%. He said, if you know you're gifted, don't take shortcuts, use it. So wherever you're gifted in your communication, don't take shortcuts, really use that. And he said, the gifted always take shortcuts because they can goof off and they can give 80% and they'll still win. But he said, if you really want to get in that 1%, then don't take shortcuts. And the things you do really well, do it with 100%. Give it your all. Give it as much of your effort as you can. He said, in your weaknesses is where you want to take shortcuts or where you can delegate. He said, you have no business doing something that you're not good at because you'll be average at it, right? So in the areas of your giftedness, and a lot of you are very gifted at connecting with people, so we'll use that as an example, do your homework. Pay the price. Don't take shortcuts because you truly can do everything with it and you can get in the top 1% with that. He said, this one's kind of funny. He said, way number 7 is he got lucky. He said, lucky, his definition is preparation intersecting opportunity. And I think that that's really great. He said, we must believe in luck. How else can we explain the success of those we don't like? That's a quote. I thought that was a good too. John always laughs when he says that, but he said, I've never known a person that can connect that is uncomfortable. You have to feel comfortable with yourself in order to connect with other people. He tells a story. I'm just going to tell it really quickly for time's sake. The story is, John is an avid golfer. And he said he was playing in a golf tournament and he really, really injured his back. Like he was down and out. He said he was in bed for 2 weeks and he really hurt his back. And he said, this was back when I was not smart and I did speaking events for 3 days in a row. Like he would go and host a conference and he would talk to them for 3 straight days. So he was supposed to go to this speaking event, thousands of people were going to be there. And he said, there's no way I can do it. I can't stand. His back was so messed up. And so he said, I'm not going to cancel. I'm going to do it, but I need a stool. And so he said, you're just going to have to tell him, Mark, who works with him, Mark Cole, he said, you're just going to have to tell him that I'm going to have a stool. I'm not going to be able to stand. I've got to sit down the whole time. So he did, and he gave him a stool and he did the 3 days. And he said, they got in the car to fly back, to get to the airport, to fly back home. And he said, Margaret said, his wife, you've never spoken so great in your life. I've never heard you speak so great. And John said, I felt it. He said, I have more energy after these last 3 days than I had. Normally I'm drained. And he said he realized 2 things. When he sits on a stool, he conserves energy and he's more conversational, and that's who he is. And so it fits him. So if you ever go and you hear John Maxwell speak, he sits on either a stool or a chair. He never stands and walks around the stage like a lot of speakers do. He always sits. And it's not necessarily because he's older or because he has a hurt back. Like, he fixed his back. He's good now. It's just because he realized that that's when he's being conversational. And so that was an aha for me of how are you comfortable and how can you communicate better when you're more comfortable, because people can tell when you're comfortable with yourself and when you're not. And then he said, really, he just got lucky. He got put in a lot of situations where he just got lucky and he connected with people. This picture is one of my favorites because it was a girls' fishing trip that Linda and I went on, Rhonda Smith, and then the lady in the green cap, that's Linda's best friend. She has nothing to do with real estate. Her husband is their banker. But this was when we went fishing, and these are Gary Keller's fishing guides. And we got to borrow them for 3 days and we just connected, and it was just one of like the best trips ever. Way number 8 is he left his comfort zone. He said, if I always do what I've always done, I'll always get what I've always gotten. And that's a powerful quote to me. When he left the church community to go into the business sector, people were mad, to be honest. They couldn't believe that John was getting out of the spiritual community, which, he really didn't, but he just switched over to the business world too and brought his faith with it. But he left his comfort zone. He said he couldn't use anything he'd ever used before. He was coming up with all new material. He was finding different ways of connecting with people because he couldn't connect through just faith alone now. It was a whole new world, totally outside of his comfort zone. So he said, ask yourself these 2 questions. When was the last time that you actually did something out of your comfort zone? And he said, how do you plan to grow if you never step out in faith or if you never step out of your comfort zone? And so those are 2 great questions I would write down or ask yourself. Because I think when you want to learn how to have a great mindset and continue to grow your mindset and connect with other people, sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone. The 9th way is he practiced. And we've talked about this before on Wednesday Morning Mindset. If you want to win, you practice, right? If you think about anybody who's been had any greatness whatsoever, they practiced, and they practiced more than their competition, or they practiced more than those around them. John has spoken over 15,000 times and he's practiced, right? He says we play at the level of our practice. And so here's his practice level for connecting. Number 1, you have to know your subject. So for some of us, it's knowing our clients. It's knowing our friends. It's knowing the people that we want to connect with. You have to know your audience. This kind of more applies to people when you're speaking, and some of you may be, so I'm going to share it. But he pre-calls and talks to get the expectations that they're looking for, because he says to connect, you have to really know what they want, and you have to know who you are and how you can deliver value. You have to know yourself. He said he doesn't do well transferring knowledge that he hasn't embedded into himself. So it would be like if you got up to give a speech on something that you've never done before, or if you were going to go to a small group and talk about something and connect with people on a topic that you have no clue about. Some of you will laugh if Troy's on. That would be like our Columbus friends or Don or anybody. That would be like me going to a hockey group and talking about hockey. I don't know anything about it, but you guys do. And so you would talk about it all day long. So I wouldn't try to. I would need to practice first, right? So that's the fourth thing is he says you give 100%. So every single time you just give 100%. When you want to connect with people, don't cheat, just do your best. Truly try to connect with them. And give 100%. And then the last is strive for continuous improvement. I love this. John said 2 years ago, his kids all went together. I need to Google this and find this, whatever it is. He didn't give the title of it, but he said his kids went together for Christmas and gave him audio of the 100 greatest speeches ever given. If anybody else has ever heard of that, please share it with me. I haven't had a chance to Google it yet, but he said he's just now going through and listening to the whole thing for the second time because he's always improving. And he just wants to strive for continuous improvement. And what better way to do that than to listen to the 100 greatest speeches that have ever been given? The last way is to think about way number 10 to connect with people is you're not the main attraction. And for some of us, that's difficult. He said, you may deliver the goods, but you are not the goods, depending on what you're giving people, right? It's the information that you're giving. He's not the main attraction. John is a person of faith. So for John, God is the main attraction. He said he just delivers the ideas, the things that actually help people. He said, if the lesson is great, you're not the reason. It's because you had a great subject and you delivered it correctly. You communicated, right? It wasn't because you were great. It was because your information was great. This is one of John's, I think this story is very funny. It's hopefully no one thinks it's sacrilegious because that's not what it's meant to be. And John shares it and he thinks it's funny, but he says, it was the first Palm Sunday and here came Jesus riding in Jerusalem on an ass. The crowd began to shout, Hosanna, Hosanna, and threw down their coats on the road. Others spread out palm branches. The ass perked up his ears. Wow, he said, I had no idea they thought so well of me. He said, if anyone comes to you after you speak or delivered a great message or connected with people, he said, they're not saying Hosanna to you. You were just the ass who carried Jesus. And I think that that's funny. Honestly, I love that because here's the deal. You're not the main attraction. And John says, when you realize that, that's how you're actually going to connect with people. And so if you think about it that way, these are all really great points. And for me, I don't know, I wake up every day and want to figure out how to connect better. I feel like I do connect and I want to keep being able to connect better with people because at the end of the day, everything that we do is about connecting with people. And the better that we can get at that, whether it's just you want to connect better with your household, your family members, or your friends, or the people in your office, or wherever you work, or whatever that looks like. I know some of you aren't going to an office anymore. But we have to work at getting better and connecting better with people. So hopefully you guys got some nuggets out of this. I got to go read what Don Holdrick said. Sometimes it takes a while to realize that you are someone you interact with as a connector. Once you realize they are a connector, you seek more involvement with that person. Don, that is so true. I 100% agree with that because when you can connect with them, you want to be around them more. And you want to figure out what you can do and what they can do to connect better with you. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for being on today. Happy Wednesday. Hopefully those of you that had snow, gosh, we'll get rid of it soon. I'm ready to get back to the 70s. Not the
best mindset ever. Great show.
Oh, thanks, Dawn. Good. Glad you got value. All right, guys. Thanks for being here. See you next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Have a good one.
You guys too.